Hello there and welcome back to another review. So today we're going to be looking at The Barefooted Kid, made back in 1993 and starring Aaron Kwok, Maggie Cheung and directed by Johnnie. And now, much like Hero from Corey Yun being a remake of Boxer from Shantung, this film here that we are looking at today is a remake of another classic Shaw Brothers vehicle, and that is Disciples of Shaolin, starring Alexander Fusheng, which I reviewed many moons ago now. It does make a few differences with the plot here and there, but it still keeps that overall feel of what was put forward in Disciples of Shaolin. We have Luo Kao-lung on board here, handling all the action and fight choreography, and the fact you have him and T. Lung here as well, and the Shaw Brothers classic managing director Mona Fong producing. The film is very much, it has that Shaw Brothers DNA, even though it's been given sort of a modern, updated twist. Aaron Kwok still plays, like I say, he plays the lead here, just like Alexander Fusheng, in that the idea is like with Aaron Kwok, the character in this, much like I said, the Alexander Fusheng character in the original movie, he can be extremely sort of naive and doesn't always see straight away the difference between right and wrong. Like, it's not always necessarily as black and white to him as it always with other people. He's very trusting, but always, wanting to do the right thing when people he likes and loves are being threatened. Though you could argue like Aaron Kwok plays Guan a lot more like comedic here. You have to remember he was sort of like, at this time, I would say probably he was, I feel he was at the height really of his singing career here. I mean, obviously Aaron Kwok, bit massive pop idol and everything, and he also made A Moment of Romance 2 the same year, and he'd also been in movies like Saviour of the Soul with Andy Lau. And one of those, he's one of these people that not only had a movie career but also had a successful singing career going on at the same time. The film works mainly because the film contains not just your average plot, plus Johnnie To's direction, plus the fight choreography from your Luo Kao-lung, plus supporting parts from the ever dependable T. Lung and Maggie Cheung, and you get a very entertaining kung fu flick. Not perfect by any means, but still thoroughly enjoyable. And this is one of them films that looks great, largely thanks to Horace Wong's beautiful cinematography. And this was another one of them movies I had on VHS back in the day from the Made in Hong Kong label. For those of you old enough to remember buying VHS, if you were in the UK, sort of in the mid to late 90s, Made in Hong Kong and Eastern Heroes, they were the two companies you got the bulk of your sort of Hong Kong and kung fu movies from. This is also one of them movies that is sort of accessible, say someone who was new to Hong Kong movies or new to especially new wave kung fu movies, starting them off with a movie like Barefooted Kid would be no bad place at all to start. It's like I say, it's very easily accessible, much in the same way sort of like Jet Li's Fong Se-yuk is a great place to start, made that same year. I think for people, if you're sort of new to kung fu movies, and like I say, new to that whole new wave movement of kung fu movies that sort of started with Once Upon a Time in China, I mean, Barefooted Kid and Fong Se-yuk are two very easily sort of accessible movies. The wire work in the film is there, and there is some overcranking on a few of the fight scenes, but luckily for the most part, these two things are sort of kept in check as the filmmakers, they sort of don't go overly mad with them. To me personally, it is probably more like an accomplished update to Disciples of Shaolin than say sort of like Hero was to Boxer from Shantung, as I think that film, Corey Yun's Hero with Yun Bu, etc., it did stumble somewhat, and it was made, I think it was made 4 years later. I think it was about 97, wasn't it, Hero? But I think this is more, I would say, more of an accomplished update, to like a Shaw Brothers vehicle, because Hero compared to Boxer from Shantung, unfortunately Hero's okay, but when you've got a classic film like Boxer from Shantung, you've got to make sure if you're going to do an update or a remake of that in any regard, it's got to be good. And unfortunately Corey Yun's Hero does stumble here and there, but Barefooted Kid as an update to sort of a remake of Disciples of Shaolin doesn't actually fare too bad. It actually comes off quite well. As I say, I think it seems a much more rounded and like an accomplished effort, so let's get into it. Watching this again, I was straight away reminded of the musical score by William Wu. Always strange seeing that infamous Shaw Brothers logo at the start of a more modern movie. because when you see when you see that Shaw Brothers logo, you instantly think of like sort of classic, like traditional martial arts movies. So when it's like a modern movie, more of a modern movie, like made in the 90s, and you see that Shaw Brothers logo, it just seems a bit odd, because you're usually picturing it from films from the like late 70s, early 80s. So we meet Aaron, who is sort of like a street urchin, then Maggie Cheung, who is just as captivating as ever, and she gives him some steamed buns. We then cut to this martial arts tournament where this like new magistrate, Yuan, is not happy with the brutality. We have Kenneth Tsang as the boss, and if you haven't already guessed, as per usual, he plays the villain. The magistrate wants a guy who is like taking the bets removed, who ends up getting stabbed as he leaves. Have Paul Chun as Mr. Wah, the magistrate's teacher, who tells him that Ki Hee Poo is behind everything, being Kenneth's character, and that the martial arts tournament is very popular. Aaron runs into this girl who is pretending to be a man by accident by none other than peeing on her, so there is some sort of that kind of crass humour, and he's looking for an address of the Four Seasons Weavers. So obviously you haven't guessed from the title, Guan's character has sort of no shoes. That's the whole idea, barefooted kid, and like Disciples of Shaolin, what it's based on, there's a thing in that, a running theme about the shoes. So in typical Shaw Brothers fashion, much like something out of Return to the 36 Chambers, the evil dragon spinners come along as they want to put Maggie's sort of dying meal, like her property which she inherited, they sort of want to put it out of business, take it over, the usual stuff. Naturally, Guan beats them up, and this is when we meet Ti Lung. Aaron is told he can stay and is given some shoes, and this, as if we didn't know Kenneth Tsang was already evil, they show him killing one of his pet birds as well, as he is not strong enough. And he owns the rival dye mill, wants to know why his merchandise is so much worse. So it's got that sort of old school kung fu plot. They're keeping with sort of the plot and sort of the plot points as like what Disciples of Shaolin, and like I say, that if you want another example of like a dying mill kind of plot, they do it in Iron Fisted Monk as well. There's a plot point about a dying mill, and Return to the 36 Chambers as well. So like I say, Kenneth's saying his merchandise is just so much worse, so they really channels into that, as I say, that old school Kung Fu Shaw Brothers plot, the idea of a dying mill. So because they say someone owes them money, Maggie says she will pay, but the Black Dragon Spinners want the Weavers as like a deposit until she can pay, but if they make some fabric quick, they can get the money quicker. Again, as always, if what I'm saying is making no sense, please don't worry about it. I'm just like glancing over the plot as we just sort of quickly go through the movie. And we learn that Guan's father and Ti Lung were once like generals. And if you look at Maggie Cheung here and the role she like plays in Heroic Trio, also directed by Johnnie To, you couldn't get more different if you tried. You could not get much different roles if you tried. But Maggie Cheung, it's just always a pleasure to see her, because she always stands out whatever movie she's in. I will get round to reviewing Heroic Trio 1 and 2 soon. There's just so many classic Hong Kong movies to get through. Such is the talent of Maggie Cheung. It's a very smart move getting an established Shaw veteran on board in Ti Lung here as well, who Jackie Chan himself would later involve a year later with Drunken Master 2. So Kwok's character can't read or write, and whilst delivering fabrics where he finds the woman from earlier, she naturally starts whacking the crap out of him with this big log. As you do, she just completely, the woman from earlier who he met, she just starts going at him with this great big log. And see, she is still annoyed at Guan for what happened earlier, and she tells him that if you learn to write your name, then you can study here, right? Then he goes there, and instead of writing his name, he writes son of a bitch, right? And all this is done is very quickly as she sort of plays a trick on him, and naturally, as anybody would, he feels of course like humiliated because he can't read or write. She's taught him like sort of the wrong thing, and it's actually quite, when you watch it and you look at it, it's actually quite evil of her what she does. It's actually like really nasty. He suddenly goes back and can write his name. We don't see her teaching him this. Not only is it evil, he even brought her a gift along, so she feels super mad guilty at this point, and rightly so, because like I say, I think she was like completely out of order. We learn Maggie never met her husband, as he died when she was 12. So while Jacklyn, the girl who tricked Aaron, makes it up to him by making sort of his shoes fit and making him food and things like that. So in typical kung fu fashion, there is a traitor at the weavers and the spinners, and the spinners come along to torch the joint. Maggie is inadvertently gets poisoned. What is awesome here is Kwok goes to take on the dragon spinners. With in Fist of Fury, when at the start of the movie, after they deliver that sign, Sick Men of Asia, and then literally a minute later, Bruce is just marching into the Japanese dojo to take them all on. They sort of do that here. He wastes no time. He wastes no time at all. There's no build-up, nothing. Just suddenly he is right there, walking in, beating the crap out of them, which I thought, to be honest, was quite awesome. Lots of that infamous sort of kung fu powder used in this one when someone gets hit. He gets the IU back and put plus the D to their property. As I say, his character will always act when he sees injustice, and even if he doesn't fully understand the consequences sometimes. The fact is, he shouldn't have taken the deed, as that has made things worse, and T-Lung now wants him to leave. Some people just can't catch a break. He's trying to do the right thing, but even that is wrong. Even Maggie, her character, who you thought would be understanding, says he should go too. So now, like I mentioned, there is wire work, but it's all done in sort of a contained way. So Jacklyn is like Paul Chun's daughter, and he doesn't want Guan seeing her. And he is all down at the moment and feeling tired of being looked down upon after someone takes his place in a boat. Because he's feeling like a bit of a loser, right? He's trying to do the right thing, that's been wrong. He's been kicked out, that's wrong. And he just, whatever he does, it's just... he feels worthless. He feels like he's not good enough. And he goes back to the tournament, and it's like, I'm ready to fight now, right? And he has to fight, I think if I recall the guy's name, I think it's Chet Wu Chu, I think is his name, who you'll remember, if I've pronounced his name right, you'll remember him from movies like Project A2. He was in Legendary Weapons of China. So the fight is very brief. Kenneth Tsang, in pure Senator Palpatine fashion, plays the nice gentleman and tries to win him over after getting one of his men to cause a scene. So he's sort of, manipulating the situation, as you do. And he wants Kwok to be in charge of his place, and buys him some shoes. And like I say, this guy just loves his shoes, and is just corrupting the young hero's mind as these villains often do. And Aaron Kwok has the right amount of curiosity on his face to give Guan that naive, sort of overly trusting personality. And the whole idea being he can earn money for him in the ring and work as protection. And he gives gifts to the Weaver staff and his girl, but she isn't interested, as he still can't write his name, and she can see that he's been sort of corrupted at this point, which is sort of a strong theme that runs through this movie, that idea of corruption and can you be paid. And Barefooted Kid, when you look at it, it can be quite a deep movie. There's a lot of themes going on here, a lot of different topics that it does sort of cover. So Guan, after being duped, watches Paul Chun's character get stabbed to death, and Kenneth now wants the magistrate dead. I mean, this guy just doesn't know when to stop. He just has no idea when to stop. And there is a scene where Maggie and T-Lung are walking on these sort of rocks, and how they manage to keep their balance and do their dialogue at the same time, I have no idea. Because if you watch that scene, it's quite obvious it's not overly that easy to walk on these rocks, and how they manage to get through that and look comfortable and do their dialogue at the same time, I have no idea. But the two work in Maggie Cheung and T-Lung, they work off each other really well, really amazingly well. So, out of sheer coincidence, the magistrate gets ambushed right next to where they are, and T-Lung saves him. And believe you me, he gets quite a bit of fight action in this movie, T-Lung. He actually gets towards the last third of the movie, he really does sort of get to show off some stuff. And whilst drunk, Guan accidentally reveals who T-Lung is, and that him and his father used to work in the capital. We get the usual smoltzy love song playing as T-Lung and Maggie Cheung are bonding. He sort of bows on her after realising sort of he's a wanted man at this point, and actually quite sad, as he goes to buy her some blusher, and you think they're going to connect and be a couple, and he has to sort of abandon her at the last minute. And it's actually quite a heartfelt, sad scene, and she sees his wanted poster. The magistrate now wants to take down Ki Pugh, and Aaron Kwok just left the building at this stage, and nothing against the guy, but it's pretty much T-Lung and Maggie Cheung who steal the film. It's Aaron Kwok is fine in it. He does his job really well. There's nothing against Aaron Kwok, but unfortunately when you're acting against, if you've got T Lung and you've got Maggie Cheung in your movie, unfortunately, they are going to steal the show, and they very much do in this movie. Aaron Kwok is, like I say, he carries it amazingly well, but when you got weights such as T Lung and Maggie there, like I say, they just have it in spades, sort of that charisma and acting and everything else. So they sort of spend the night together. So Guan's girlfriend tells him, the people you work for killed my dad, right? So T Lung ends up getting poisoned by this innkeeper as they have his son. So yep, you guessed it, it's an ambush, and loads of goons come along with spears. And it's so awesome here with T Lung, and it's a really fine example of what new wave kung fu movies were in the 90s. And as I mentioned, the movie it's so damn accessible. It's one of them movies, like if you've never seen a kung fu movie, if you've never seen, say, a Shaw Brothers movie, if you're totally unaware of anything to do with kung fu, Barefooted Kid, to be honest with you, is not a bad place to start, because it's so sort of friendly to somebody new to sort of the genre. And he kicks absolute arse here, by the way. Like, it's worth noting as well, the picture quality on the Blu-ray from the Shaw Brothers box set is absolutely fantastic as well. So if you do watch this movie, it really does look incredible. And with the set design there, I mean, there's so many. They go a bit overboard with the dried leaves. There's a big thing with leaves in this movie. They seem to gone absolutely crazy with the dried leaves. So he gets ambushed by arrows in quite an epic scene. Guan rushes to help, and this romantic sort of music kicks in like a second after T dies. And Kwok now goes to take on the dragon spinners, and Kenneth blames it all on the magistrate and goes on to stab Guan. And what I love is, to keep it pure Shaw Brothers at the end, we get zoom-ins, we get set base, we get darts like underneath the table, all this kind of stuff. And Guan starts using his chain whip, and the fight actually gets into more sort of Ronnie Yu kind of territory here. Visually at least. If you look, talking Ronnie Yu, like films like, Bride with White Hair, visually it very much looks like a Ronnie Yu sort of directed action scene. I mean, it's a very brutal ending. It's just over so quick, unfortunately. It feels a little rushed. Aaron gets absolutely pinned, butchered, and the sweetest moment that even after all this bloodshed, he still wants to put his shoes on, and he can't reach them. And when you see the foot give up, trying to put the shoes on, it's so sad. Like, it really is. I was gonna say, there's efforts here to get to your heartstrings, to get, to give the film some emotional weight. And the ending here, it is quite an emotional ending, because, like I said, they've made a big deal about these shoes, and he was a good fighter, and hang on, wait a minute, he the shoes were the one thing above all else that he did care about. If nothing else, it was about the shoes. And at the end, when you see that foot sort of stop struggling to put them on, you realise, like, he's not gonna, it's over, and like I say, it is quite sad. I always felt that Guan in this movie, there was so much we didn't know about him, or at least I wanted to know more. And it ends on a montage of scenes from the movie, and sort of Maggie ends up pregnant with T Lung's baby. And that's sort of the end of Barefooted Kid. But really enjoyable, as I say, as a remake of or rehash, reboot, whatever you want to call it, of an old Shaw Brothers movie. It does really well. It does a better job, as I say, than what Corey Yun's Hero did of Boxer from Shantung. This film is a great remake, sort of new modern remake of Disciples of Shaolin, and I think it's handled really well. As I say, when you got Maggie Cheung and T Lung in the same movie, you got great fight choreography, you got great set design. There's an effort here to give the film an emotional weight. And like I mentioned as well, the film is just really, really accessible. So if you have seen Barefooted Kid, let me know what you think of it. Do you enjoy it? What do you think of the movie? And as I say, I think that is it in terms of the Shaw Brothers Volume 2 box set. But there's loads more kung fu movies to go. So thank you very much indeed for watching. Hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll see you again soon.
Don't concentrate on the finger, or you will miss all that heavenly glory.